So, welcome to the prayer spaces session number 21, thinking about Advent prayer spaces. So I'm going to hand over at this point pretty much straight away to Naomi and Fiona, who are going to help us to think about Advent prayer spaces, how they work, what makes them great, and the impact they can have on children and young people. So Naomi, over to you.
Oh, I nearly failed on the first hurdle. I couldn't work out how to unmute myself. That wasn't good. Can you all hear me? Give me a thumbs up or a wave. Excellent. So we are being joined by the lovely Fiona, who ran a Advent prayer space last year. So we are going to have a little chat together, and she's also very kindly got some photos to share for us. Out of interest, if you've already run a prayer space ever before, can you give me a thumbs up or a reaction, like yes? Or are we talking most people are brand new altogether, never done a prayer space? Okay, good split. Excellent. Well, the good news is with an Advent prayer space, it's a prayer space in school. So wherever Fiona is going to share with us will be helpful, whether you have done a prayer space before or not. So Fiona, welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Fiona, could you tell us a little about yourself? Give us a bit of an introduction.
I'm Fiona. I live in Sheffield in the north of England. I have 3 jobs. So I'm a teacher for part of the week. I work for Open the Book, which some of you may have heard of, which is part of Bible Society, for some of the week. And I work for a local charity called Christians in Sheffield Schools for some of the week. So yeah, fairly busy, fair mixture there. I don't know what else you want to know about me. I've got 3 grown-up children and a chocolate Labrador.
Oh, what's your chocolate Labrador's name?
Chutney.
Great name.
So I hope she doesn't make an appearance, but she might.
Give us a little tail wag. So you have got a lot of experience in education, both in school, yes, out of school, working with schools, working in schools. And last year you ran a Advent prayer space in school. Was that your first ever prayer space in school?
It wasn't my first ever prayer space, but it was probably the first one that I'd kind of been in charge of the ideas for, if you know what I mean. I'd been part of teams before, and I'd visited other prayer spaces around the city and nearby. So
yeah. So how did you end up arriving at an Advent Christmas prayer space in school?
Well, because I work for Christians in Sheffield Schools and I'm sort of a little bit known in Sheffield, I was actually contacted by a teacher at the school, a Christian teacher at the school, and she asked me if I would come and run an Advent prayer space. So
that's amazing. That's the dream, right? To be invited in, not have to ask.
Yes.
Excellent. So how did running a Christmas themed prayer space compare to a normal or a non-themed prayer space in school? Was it harder? Was it easier? Was it more?
I think it was probably about the same in many ways, but because I had this great starting point of Advent, I could hook lots of things into the theme quite quickly, and so in some ways I suppose it was a bit easier, but not too much different in the end.
Great. I think Tim's going to share some photos for us so we can actually see what we are talking about. There we go. Excellent.
So that's the doors into the classroom, giving a taster.
And so how did you fit it into all of a normal busy Christmas schedule? Did you do it over a few days? Did the whole school come in? How did it fit in the school calendar?
Well, it took us a little while to find a date because the school had lots of different things going on. And obviously I was a teacher as well, so we had to do it on my non-teaching days. So it took a little while to get the date, but I think it was something like the 5th of December, which was pretty good timing for an Advent prayer space. I went into the school the night before and set up the room. I hadn't been to the school before, but I'd got the teacher to send me photographs of the space that I would be using, the room that I would be using. So I knew where the door was and the windows were and where I could stick things on the wall. And I knew all that before I planned my activities. And then I went in on the Tuesday. We did it on a Wednesday. I went in on the Tuesday evening after I'd been teaching, and before the caretaker from the school went home, and I set it all up. So I knew the next morning that I just had to walk in, and that was quite comforting for me. I'm not really a morning person, and I just knew I'd sleep better as well if I knew it was all done and dusted. So yeah.
And so then, you know your space, you know your date. How did you choose which prayer activities to use?
I'm not sure if I can answer that. I think I just thought about Advent, and I just thought about things, that reminded me of Advent. So I did the theme of doors because of Advent calendars, and there were little doors, in an Advent calendar. So I had lots of photographs of doors, and um, had the theme of joy. I had, what were my 9 themes? I had love, joy, doors, light, peace, hope, gift, good news, and waiting. So those were the 9 things that I thought linked really well with Advent and the message of Advent, the time of Advent.
Yeah, so good. If we go back, maybe you can just give us a quick run through of each of these. So what they did.
Those were my instructions. That's what I put out for the children to read before they did the activity. And for this one, I had a huge sheet of wallpaper lining, which was rolled out across the floor, stuck down with sellotape, lots of felt pens, and they just wrote down the things that made them feel joyful. And this was just one example of what one boy or girl wrote. I had the theme of light. I wanted to have something, I suppose, sort of almost social action type activity. So I had a big wooden hand that had a globe in it and lots of cardboard, because you always need cardboard in a prayer space. And I asked them about what they'd like to change about our world. And there was just a massive variety of responses from, some children had written things like deforestation. Some children had written no suicide, no bullying, no wars. I want it to be a peaceful world. I don't want anyone to be in poverty. I want there to be more forgiveness in the world. Just lots and lots, but really thoughtful responses to what they'd like to see us change in our world, what they'd like to see. They'd like to see light in our world, basically.
Yeah. You give a child an opportunity to say what's going on inside. It can be very, very powerful, can't it?
Yes, it really was interesting what they'd written down, and moving, really.
Yeah.
And then hope. I had these bricks that they're wooden bricks and they've got holes in them, and it just reminded me of the Western Wall, in Jerusalem, where Jews fold up their prayers and stick them in the cracks in the wall. So I asked them to write down their hopes and dreams for the future. And again, great variety of responses from, I want to be a footballer to I hope to be a good role model, one person had written. My dream is to be helpful and respectful to everyone. My dream is to show love to people. That's what I hope I will do with my life. So they were kind of their hopes or dreams for their life that they wrote down and shoved them in the holes. They quite liked shoving them in the holes, I think.
Great. Are there any? Yeah.
And then this was just a quiet corner, really, where you could just sit and look at the lights, watch the lava lamp, and just rest and be quiet. Because I think as a teacher, as a pupil, you don't really get many times in the school day when you can just be quiet and you can be still and you can think. And, Advent, I think one of the things it's about is peace. And so I was trying to give them a time to do that, really, and obviously they could think their own thoughts. They weren't guided in any way particularly. They were just asked to sit and be quiet. There were cushions and lights and stuff. Yeah
So good.
And then doors, I mentioned earlier, I had lots of photographs of doors because I like taking photographs and I like taking photographs of interesting doors. So I had loads of photographs which I laminated and I just stuck on a board. And then I had quite a few advent calendars as well with the little doors. And I chose ones that showed the Christmas story rather than, I don't know, Peppa Pig or whatever. So they were sort of spread around, had loads of post-it notes. And I just asked, you know, I said that behind the door in an advent calendar, there's a message, a picture, a chocolate, a Bible verse. You know, what message would you want to give people behind the door? And again, they came up with some really good messages, you know, things like, you're beautiful just the way you are, be positive, don't give up, God is on your side, be grateful, love and care for other people in the world, don't be afraid to spread the word of Jesus. There was a real range of responses. One did actually write help, and I don't know whether that child was in crisis. I don't know who wrote that, but yeah, so again, moving, interesting, big range of responses.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then obviously Advent, Gabriel brought Mary some good news that she was going to have a baby, and I'd hung a white costume with tinsel and a sort of tinsel halo on a hanger on the cupboard to represent Gabriel, and then I gave them lots of mobile phone shapes to write their good news on. And you know, they had a real range of good news. Things about being adopted, you know, one child had got adopted, um, you know, to the other extreme of my rabbits just had babies, to my father got shot 3 times, but he's alive. That was one of the messages. I'm not poor because a lady came and helped me. I don't know whether that was a social worker or something, but there was a real, again, range of very honest, meaningful responses. They didn't hold back in a way. Yeah, and it was moving to read them, really.
Yeah. I think that's the beautiful thing about a prayer space in school, isn't it? It gives a permission to be, permission to be free, and permission to be you. And there's no expectations. And when you give a pupil that permission, yeah, all sorts can come out.
Well, I told them at the beginning not to write their name on anything. I mean, I spend my whole life as a teacher saying, write your name on it. But, you know, in this instance, I said, don't write your name. This is all anonymous. Nobody will know what you've written, because I think that helps them to be more honest and be more real with the situation. So they did know that.
Yeah. We also
So, yeah.
your handwriting, because we know the class
Yeah.
teacher.
I said spelling doesn't matter, handwriting doesn't matter, you know, I said all that, sort of quite counterintuitive for a teacher in some ways, but yeah.
We've got questions popped up, probably worth dealing with as we go along, which is
Okay,
yeah, what did you do with the written down responses after the event?
When
How do you
when
respect the vulnerability of some of what's been written after that prayer space day?
Well, as I say, none of it could be identified really, because nobody knew who'd written what. But at the end of the day, the head teacher came in and started reading a lot of the responses, and she asked if she could keep them, because she said, I didn't know there was anyone in my school dealing with that situation, and she was quite moved by it all, and she asked if she could keep all the bits of cardboard and the phones and things, particularly because she wanted to anonymously address some of those situations, perhaps in an assembly or perhaps with the staff. She just wanted to be more aware of what was going on. So I gave them to the school. I mean, I hope that's okay.
Yeah. I mean,
So hopefully there was some follow up to some of the more difficult things.
yeah, I've had it in prayer spaces in schools where like a common theme maybe has come up, and we've said to the RE lead, you know, these are some big questions that have been repeatedly, or you know, questions or prayers that have come up around different stations, and those RE leads have decided to take it into the RE lessons or run a lunchtime club across similar themes so that they could address exactly like you're talking. You know, the school is there all year long. They have specialists that deal with all different things, so we get to go in and offer a prayer space in school, but then we do have to leave again. But actually, yeah, passing it on to the school is the best thing to do.
Well, she was visibly moved by it, and I was so glad that she'd come in. And I think if I ran another one, I would, you know, ask if the head would like to visit at the end of the day, because although she'd have got something from seeing the first class of the day come in, actually by seeing all the responses at the end of the day, I think probably she gained even more in some ways.
Yeah, definitely. Have we got any more? Yeah, we have.
Yes, so we had a love table. We had some hearts on that you can see there, and they were just asked to, I think, write down, you know, who that they had. There was a bowl of water with little plastic hearts, and they put the little plastic heart in the water and thought about somebody that they loved. It could be, well, it could be somebody. I said it could be a place, it could be a pet, even, but somebody that they thought of when they thought of love, and put the plastic heart in the bowl, and then there was some paper hearts to hang on the trees which were lit up around the room, which they could write somebody's name or a situation or a place or something that meant love to them. So yeah, that was what we did there. Then we thought about waiting, because obviously Advent is a time of waiting. You've got, often you're opening your Advent calendar or lighting a candle or something like that. So yeah, I had lots of different kinds of timers and those sort of snow globy things. And they sat and waited until the timer had gone through, and then they could take a clock face and write what they were waiting for in life. So again, it was quite moving. I mean, we got things like waiting for it to snow, but also waiting for Jesus, waiting for happiness, waiting for love, waiting for forgiveness. So there were, you know, again, a range of really honest, meaningful answers.
I love this one that's 10 minutes. It's amazing to think that they could sit still for 10 minutes, but it happens, doesn't it? Like permission.
They were quite intrigued by the, yeah. Yeah. Oh, the dog. There's the dog. Oh dear.
But yeah, permission to go slow, permission to be still is
yes.
a big school environment. Go slow and be still is actually a gift. So yeah.
Yes, like the peace part of it as well. It was another slower bit, but I think that's part of Advent, isn't it? We sort of take stock of it and wait and think. Yeah.
And I think we've got one more.
Gifts. Obviously, you start doing your Christmas shopping during Advent, and Jesus was God's gift to the world. So I had a basket with a baby Jesus in it, as it were, and just lots of gifts. And I don't know if you can see, there's a little basket there, and I had some Jenga blocks which I'd stuck various things on, and I asked them to think of a gift, or if they couldn't think of one, to look at the blocks and think of a gift that they could give someone which costs nothing. So things like happiness, love, joy, acceptance, a smile, telling the truth, being like Jesus. Those are the sorts of things they wrote on the labels, and they hung them on the tree. So they were gifts that didn't cost anything. That, you know, it was quite a difficult area of Sheffield, and you know, perhaps they didn't have a lot of money to buy gifts, but there were gifts that they could give people during Advent or Christmas that cost nothing and would be very valuable.
Yeah. So there are a lot of different prayer activities. Was it one class, two class?
It was one class at a time. And we had 8 classes through and 180 kids through it all in one day. I was pretty tired, I have to say, by the end of it, but it was really worthwhile. And, you know, I really enjoyed it, and although I was tired, I was buzzing as well. You know, it was just, it was a beautiful thing to watch them do, really. They were really respectful. There was no kind of need to say, don't do that to anyone. it was a dream day, really. In many ways, it was just, yeah, they were really good,
And
and
people,
engaged, and they took it seriously, and they were honest, and yeah, it was really.
oh,
I would
good.
recommend doing one.
Excellent. When the pupils came in, oh, hey, let's get back, hold it. When the pupils came in, were they just allowed to free flow around the room and go where they, did you tell them? Did you guide them?
Well, I gave them a little sort of a bit of a hello, and these are the sort of, don't put your name on it, spelling doesn't matter, all those kinds of housekeeping-y things. I kept it quite short, so they just sat in the space at that time. And then I think we put groups of them for each of the 9 activities to start them off. And then we said, when you've done that activity, you can move to another activity where there's a space. So we set them off on the first one, but after that, it was their choice, really, of where to go next, where there was space. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you've done prayer spaces in schools before, do you normally do them in just all in one day, or do you normally spread them out? How do you?
It's varied. It's easier in some ways if you do it over 2 adjoining days, because you're all set up, and you've got a little bit more time and a little bit more energy, maybe. But yeah, it was just in a classroom that wasn't used, and yeah, set it up the night before, did it all in one day. But there's other ways of doing it. You might
Yeah.
just do it for a year group, or you might just do it. I mean, I had to be aware that I was going to have Y1s to Y6s going through this, so they had to be activities that all those age groups could
Yeah.
access at their own level. But
You did
yeah.
an excellent job. Thank you so much for sharing with us, Fiona. Did I just
Thank you. It's nice to remember it all. It's a year ago, obviously. Uh, the thing that made me laugh about it, just to finish off, was because you asked the favourite story. One child had written that they wanted love to be all around, and I thought, oh, we were all the adults were laughing at that, because we thought we knew which movie they'd been watching. So.
Yeah. It sounds like the head teacher actually was quite moving.
She was really moving, and took it very seriously, and offered follow up, as it were. So yes, that was very encouraging, and it made it feel. It already felt worthwhile, but it just meant you felt it was placed into safer hands. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's so good. Thank you so much for sharing. And thank you so much for sharing all your ideas. It's nothing more powerful than hearing someone actually has done it and seeing photos, because sometimes it's really hard to imagine, or where do I begin, or what could it look like? So yeah, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to share with us.
I hope it's been helpful.
If you've got any questions, then feel free to put them in the chat, and we can catch up with Fiona a little bit later and ask any more questions. As we've seen from Fiona, there's one way of doing Christmas themed, Advent themed prayer space in school, but there are many. And in the chat, we'll put a link to all our prayer space in school prayer activities, which are Christmas themed. I've got some photos to share for you with from another one of our networkers in Oxfordshire, who runs Narnia prayer space themed, which again is Christmassy. They utilize a lot of white sheets, and again on our website you can download all of these prayer activities for free as well. And it takes pupils on a journey through Narnia, through journey, through waiting, through gifts. And I've got some photos here from them. Again, a lot of white sheets, a lot of white paper. Christmas trees are easy to find at Christmas, right? I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure I've got some definite older Christmas decorations in the loft that I don't use now, but they'll be great in a prayer space in school. And so there are lots of different ideas here, again, so Christmas is so great because you can go all out on a theme, or you can be really like narrow in on specific prayer activities. within the season as well. You can see there, some are here in a school, some are in a church where the pupils go to their local church to use the space. Again, they take whole classes in, and they have different ways where they can write the prayers on the snowflakes. They make the snowflakes, the time to go slowly and cut something out slowly and respond and reflect is so powerful. You can see there the lion's mane, and also hanging on the trees in that next picture was prayers as well. So there's just some more ideas for you, just to inspire you and to encourage you. Christmas is a great time, even if you've never ever asked for a prayer space before, or maybe you've have asked but maybe haven't had a door open. We find that Christmas is often a time of year that schools will say yes, because it's a season that they understand. It's not something that needs a lot of unpacking. It's a season that everyone understands, they can relate to. So I would encourage you, even if you've had maybe a no before, that maybe Christmas is another chance that you could get a yes. Also, Christmas is a great, all the photos you've seen are of a whole day or a couple of days prayer space where they've taken over a big space. But Christmas as a season overall is a season that everybody has some understanding of. So actually it's a really great opportunity to just pop into a school as a pop-up prayer space. Even you might take 1 or 2 prayer activities in a lunchtime and after school club, and just pop up with that one theme, that one prayer activity or 2 prayer activities for people when they're passing by in a busy corridor, in the playground even, because the season is already known that you don't need to do that. It's not necessarily I could hold teaching exercises going on behind what you're coming in to do. Anyway, a prayer space is, we always say a prayer space is not a teaching space, it's a learning space. The pupils have the choice of whether they want to engage and how they want to engage. And that can be down to their spiritual style, their learning style. So choice is really important. And so a pop-up space is a really great opportunity, especially if it's the first time that you're thinking about taking prayer spaces into schools. A pop-up is an excellent way to start small, get really good at it, get brave, get your confidence up, show that it really works, to then build on it, build the relationship with the school in the future. So you don't always have to go all out with a big themed room, is what I'm trying to say, because sometimes we can look at all these pictures and think, wow, that's amazing, but where do I begin? Actually, you can start really small, you can start with just one, and you can build up. So yeah, so all those prayer activities that we have shared tonight and more are in the link in the chat. You can search there, and there's also many other stories in our stories filter. If you search for Christmas or Advent, there's previous stories that have been written by other people, again with more photos to inspire you, how they approached the school, how they got involved, but what the pupils actually felt and reacted like. That's all in there as well. So do we have any questions that we have missed? Has anybody else got any more questions that they want to share before we go into breakout rooms? Don't be scared by the breakout rooms. They're just for a few minutes, just to get ideas going amongst yourselves. Oh, and there's some links in the chat there as well with some specific stories that people have shared with us in the last year. I can't see any other questions, but maybe you'll think of some more in some breakout rooms. We'll just pop you into breakout rooms just for 10 minutes and then bring us back so we can finish together and we can answer any final questions. So there's a question there about helpers, which Fiona, do you like to answer? How many helpers did Fiona have?
I didn't have the same helpers all day. I had a few youth workers and people like that who popped in and helped me for a couple of hours. It probably would have been good to have, you know, a bigger team, but it just didn't prove possible. And the teacher came in with the class every time, obviously, and they were very helpful as well. And I tried to make it as, user friendly and as obvious as to what they had to do as well. So I was basically I was free to talk to anybody that I wanted to, and so was my other helper, and it
Yeah.
seemed to work okay. But obviously, if you can get a bigger team, that's great too.
Yeah. And it's so great as well. You can split your team up. So some people can just do one morning or one afternoon, or some people can come and
Yeah.
help set up and pack down.
That's what we did.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be the same people all at the same time. That's a really important thing to note. You don't have to carry it all. It doesn't have to be the same people for the whole thing. If they're up for it, brilliant. But actually, yeah, many hands make light work. That's great. Okay, Tim, I think we're good for breakout rooms for 10 minutes, and then we'll bring everyone back to finish together with any final questions. Thank you, Fiona.
And I think that's about it. So let's just again pause again, just to sort of sign off with Jesus, to pray, and to send you on your way. So God, we thank you for the privilege that we have to work with schools, to be a blessing to them, to be carriers of your good news in word and deed, and in all forms of life into a school. So thank you for that privilege. And we pray that you would continue to open doors for your people, for your church to be present in our schools, and for your good news to be heard and seen and experienced. In Jesus' name, amen.